Welcome to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio. Online at fppradio.com. Well, you've probably heard the news, and there's actually two giant news stories that I am talking about. The first of which is one that I wanted to be able to talk about on Friday, but I did not get the chance, mainly because the verdict, or not the verdict, but the sentence had not been handed out before I finished recording and uploading the show. It was actually about, I believe, half an hour after I uploaded the show is when the verdict came out of New York, or not the verdict, the sentencing. The verdict came a couple months ago, but the sentencing of Ross Ulbricht, where Judge Catherine Forrest said you are going to jail for the rest of your natural life. That was the sentence handed down to Ross Ulbricht. But something that I thought about over the weekend and I wrote an article about yesterday is the dangerous precedent that has been set. And yes, I realize that the precedent was set when they charged him, but the massive sentence that was given to Ross Ulbricht, that just, further puts another nail in the coffin of the dangerous precedent. Because the precedent basically is that if you run a website and people do things on this website that the government does not like, then you, as the owner and creator of the website, can be held criminally liable for what other people do. Now, think about that for just a moment. And I'm going to give some examples to where that precedent could possibly apply, but it never has. So there's the website Craigslist. I'm sure you're familiar with Craigslist. You can go find free baby clothes. You can sell a bicycle. You can look for jobs. You can go to the personal section of their classifieds. You can, find somebody to hook up with. At one point, you could find prostitutes on Craigslist. And the founder of Craigslist removed that, but that person was never charged with running a prostitution ring. There are still some prostitutes that will post in the casual encounters section of Craigslist. Those generally get removed, but occasionally people do still post one of the personal things in such a way to where it eludes the people that, would otherwise click report. And people wind up hiring prostitutes. The owner of Craigslist is never charged with running a prostitution ring. Something else that happened through Craigslist was the Craigslist killer, where this guy was meeting women and then killing them. The owner of Craigslist was never held responsible for murder, but that's the precedent that has been set with the Silk Road, to where if you set up a website and people can buy and sell substances that might not be legal, then you, as the creator and owner of the website, are held criminally responsible for what other people are doing. McDonald's is another example, to where, McDonald's, generally a lot of people there, so it would not be at all unusual for a couple of people to meet in the parking lot of a McDonald's. Happens all the time. Something else that happens all the time is drug deals in the parking lot of McDonald's. But yet the owner of the McDonald's is never held criminally responsible or criminally liable for a drug deal that happens in his parking lot. He's never charged with facilitating drug trade, but yet drug transactions happen in the parking lot of McDonald's all the time. And you see where I'm going with this. And that is the dangerous precedent that was set and basically cemented into place with the life sentence for Ross Ulbricht, is that now you can be held criminally responsible for other people's actions if their actions take place in property that you own. And I'm using the term property loosely there because a website kind of is property, but not really. Like, it's not tangible property, but whoever owns the website domain, whoever runs the coding of the site, they have an ownership stake, an ownership claim to that little piece of the interwebs, if you will. So, it's a dangerous precedent, and this isn't just something that I've come up with. This is something that Ross Ulbricht's attorney said before the trial even began, is that this sets a dangerous precedent. And another dangerous precedent, and this is one that isn't being talked about anywhere near as much, is the precedent that was set when Barrett Brown was charged with a long list of crimes, and ultimately he wound up taking some kind of a plea deal because otherwise he was facing over 100 years in jail for posting a link from a chat room into a forum or vice versa. And he wound up, because he didn't want to go to prison for the rest of his life, took a plea, and I think he wound up getting like 8 years in prison for simply posting a link from one location to another. And that is a huge infringement, as I see it, and as many others see it. That is a huge infringement on freedom of speech and freedom of the press. Something else that's an infringement of free speech and the free press that for now is no longer going to be infringing on speech or the press, and that is the bulk collection of metadata by the National Security Agency. And the reason I say for now is because yesterday the U.S. Senate failed to extend Section 215 of the USA Patriot Act. And on the one hand, yay, congrats, I'm glad somebody in Congress finally did something right. But on the other hand, they're expected to put in some lame-ass thing that's being called a reform bill that all it does is reforms how the data is being collected. It does not end the collection of metadata. It does not stop the NSA from being able to look at and collect the metadata. This thing that some people are calling a reform bill mandates that the telecommunication companies keep the metadata. And then the NSA can go to the secret court, get a warrant, and then look at all the metadata they want to. So I'll tell you more about that when we come back on Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, online at fppradio.com.
Why do they hate us? Is libertarianism compatible with Islam? Davi Barker answers these questions and more in Voluntary Islam and Other Essays. He advances the voluntarist cause with analysis of the confluence of values between Islam and libertarianism, as well as contemporary movements from the Tea Party to the Arab Spring. Voluntary Islam by Davi Barker is available from Amazon.com and all major bookstores.
It is the year 91,001 BCE. Witness humanity's origins in Hyperchronius, a classic role-playing game for Windows PCs, with a story like no other game before. A liberty-oriented experience that is not to be missed. Go to zog.ninja to get your copy of Hyperchronius today. Use the code FPP to get $1 off. Hyperchronius, zog.ninja, code FPP.
In 2115 New England, there are no borders, no states, and no regulations, yet never has a more peaceful and prosperous place existed. But Mr. Drake's security company has seen better days. Faced with the prospect of waning power, Mr. Drake intends to replace the anarchy of New England with a government. But at what cost? And can anyone stop him? Anarchy in New England by Joe Jarvis is available from Amazon.com and all major bookstores.
Welcome back to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio. Online at fppradio.com. The story here comes from UPI, and it was written last night. They put the U.S. Senate, in a rare Sunday session, voted to advance the USA Freedom Act to replace the controversial USA Patriot Act, largely as a means to restrict the widespread spying authority given to the National Security Agency. And right off the bat, UPI is giving false information. The USA Freedom Act does not replace the entirety of the USA Patriot Act. The USA Freedom Act replaces Section 215 that was set to expire at the beginning of the day on Monday, June the 1st, which is today. So as of 12:01 a.m. today, the day that I am recording this, the Section 215 of the USA Patriot Act expired. There may have been a couple other sections, but the rest of the USA Patriot Act is still there. It's still intact. So it's only a very small portion that expired. And the USA Freedom Act, again, that's the horrible monstrosity that says that telecommunications companies have to collect this data and store it for the NSA to then request once they go to the FISA court. That's a rubber stamp factory where they just yep, approved. Over the last 40 years, they've approved 36,000 warrant requests. They've denied 12. Let me give you those numbers one more time. They've approved over 36,000 warrant requests. They have denied 12. Not 12,000, 12, as in 12. If you go to Dunkin' Donuts and you say, give me a dozen donuts, they will give you the same number of donuts as the number of warrant requests that the FISA court has denied in 40 years. 12. The article here from UPI continues. It says, the Senate voted 77-17 on Sunday to begin debate on H.R. 2048, the USA Freedom Act, which has already passed the House. Lawmakers did not get into President Obama's, or rather they did not get the bill to President Obama's desk by midnight, so there will be a brief lapse between the expiration of Section 215 of the Patriot Act and the adoption of the USA Freedom Act. Now, let me give you the actual name of the USA Freedom Act because, freedom sounds good, right? USA Freedom, for people that are big on America, that sounds even better, right? But no, sadly, the USA Freedom Act has about as much to do with freedom as the Everybody Gets a Puppy Act has to do with everybody getting a puppy, except that the Everybody Gets a Puppy Act doesn't actually exist, except for in my mind. But I guarantee you that if there was an Everybody Gets a Puppy Act, it would not give everybody a puppy. The USA Freedom Act, the full title is Uniting and Strengthening America by Fulfilling Rights and Ensuring Effective Discipline Over Monitoring Act of 2015. Short title, USA Freedom Act of 2015. The article here from UPI continues. The Senate defeated the bill last week, but agreed to take another look at the legislation as many recognized an extension of the Patriot Act did not have enough support. And again, it was not an extension of the entirety of the Patriot Act. It was an extension of Section 215 of the Patriot Act. And Section 215 was the section that those in Congress and those at the NSA were saying gave them authority to do all of the horrible things that they did. But then a court said, no, like Section 215 cannot bear the weight that you are attempting to put on it. In other words, the thing that you're saying authorizes you to do all of this stuff does not actually authorize you to do all of this stuff. And also, before I continue, I just want to say that my prediction was off by 2 days. And my prediction for anybody that, I don't know if I actually verbalized this prediction, but I did put it in writing. So if you missed that article, what I predicted was that there would be enough warmongering and fear-mongering during the week-long recess that they had, the Memorial Day recess, where they went into recess on May 23rd, came back on May 31st. My prediction was there would be enough fear-mongering during that time frame to either renew Section 215 or to pass the USA Freedom Act. And I was off by 2 days. And the reason I say I was off by 2 days is because it's going to be Tuesday, which is tomorrow, before they actually vote on approval of the USA Freedom Act. So they got the number of votes to pass the procedural hurdle to begin debate, and that was something that they were initially a few votes short on. I forget if they were 3 or 6 votes short on the procedural for the USA Freedom Act, and then they were the other either 3 or 6 short on overcoming a procedural hurdle to move forward with reauthorizing Section 215. I thought that they would get either one of those done, and I am pleasantly surprised that they did not. However, they are going to wind up putting this monstrosity that they call the USA Freedom Act, and it appears that's going to wind up passing tomorrow at the earliest. You know, they might wind up debating for most of the day tomorrow and say, all right, well, we'll vote on Wednesday, but it's going to be Tuesday of this week at the earliest. The story here from UPI continues. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, who led the charge against the USA Freedom Act last week, ultimately asked lawmakers to vote for it this time, but only after a final plea for the extension of Section 215 of the USA Patriot Act. McConnell said on Sunday, I remain determined to working towards the best outcome for the American people, or rather the best outcome for the American people possible under the circumstances. Taking much of the spotlight on the Senate floor Sunday was Senator Rand Paul, who continued to promise the death of the NSA's spying powers. And Paul, of course, is a Republican presidential candidate who, even though he says he wants to kill the NSA's spying powers, or at least that's what's being reported here in the article from UPI, you may recall I covered the story last week where Rand Paul said on Meet the Press that he did not actually want to abolish the NSA. He just wanted to prevent them from spying on Americans without a warrant. And again, knowing how easy it is for them to get a warrant, that's not really asking them to jump through too big of a hoop, right? There's a little bit more from this article, plus a little more when we come back on Peace, Love, Liberty Radio.
Hey, this is Michael Dean from the Freedom Fiends radio show. I've been working with computer programmer Derek Slopey to create Fiend Phone. I'm using Fiend Phone right now to talk with and record one of my co-hosts in real time. Take it, Davi.
Hey, this is Davi Barker, and I'm 1,000 miles away from Michael, but we sound like we're in the same room.
We sure do, Davi. So, Davi, please tell the nice people more about Fiend Phone.
PhonePhone is free, open-source software that opens up a global world of possibilities for collaborative, high-quality remote voice media production, and I'm digging it.
People can try the Windows beta version of PhonePhone right now at PhonePhone.com. But we're also raising money to vastly improve PhonePhone and vastly improve independent talk media worldwide.
So go to PhonePhone.com to help out. Who will build the audio roads? We will, with your help.
That's PhonePhone.com. FEENPHONE.com. Foxtrot, Echo, November, phone.com.
PhonePhone. I never knew remote audio could be this good.
Bitcoin Not Bombs is a launching pad for nonprofits and social entrepreneurs into the financial freedom of the Bitcoin economy. Bitcoin Not Bombs offers premium publicity campaigns designed to facilitate an organization's adoption of Bitcoin as a payment system. Bitcoin Not Bombs is fully committed to being the hub of the nonprofit sector of the Bitcoin economy, maximizing the potential cross-promotion of all our clients and commercial partners. To learn more, visit bitcoinnotbombs.com.
Welcome back to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio. Online at fppradio.com. So before I continue with the article, and it's actually a little bit longer than I had planned, that's why I'm getting the announcement out now instead of trying to squeeze it in at the very end of the show. Don't forget, every Wednesday I do an Ask Me Anything, where I will answer literally any question that you send me, as long as the question can be reworded in a radio-friendly manner. And the reason I say in a radio-friendly manner is because the show is available on iHeartRadio, and they have broadcast standards for shows that they make available. So it has to be something that is radio-friendly. And as long as I can make it radio-friendly without violating, terms and conditions and standards and whatnot, then I will answer the question. You can send those questions to me, ama@fppradio.com. And also want to make the announcement, I am sure I've mentioned it before, but during PorcFest, I will be broadcasting, or rather recording live every day, or not every day, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So the 3 days that I do the show, I will be recording live in front of a live studio audience on Monday, Wednesday, Friday of PorcFest, 1 o'clock. And feel free to come, sit in the audience. And I will be having a couple of guests, as well as I plan on doing a rapid-fire AMA each day. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday, one segment will be a rapid-fire Ask Me Anything, to where I'll try to get as many questions as possible and, make them things that I would know the answers to. And these, I will not be answering email questions during the week of PorcFest. So if you want your question answered during the Rapid Fire AMA during PorcFest, you have to be in the media room. You have to write your question down on a piece of paper and submit it to me. And they will be answered in the order in which they're received, and I'll answer as many as possible. And also during PorcFest, again, that's the Porcupine Freedom Festival. You can find out more at PorcFest.com. That's PorcFest.com. I will be hosting, or rather co-hosting, the Brunch Fest event, and I'll post the link in the show notes for that. So if you are a cook, or if you like to eat, and you think that you have like the best brunch sort of entree, or not entree, but like the best brunchy sort of meal, you can enter as a cook. That is free. If you are a judge, then there's a fee for that, and I believe it's $9, and that gets you the ability to try all of the tasty treats that will be provided. It was great fun last year, and I was a judge last year. This year I'm helping host. So, participate in that. I'm also going to be giving a presentation on how to be the media. So if you want to find out how to exercise your rights to be the press, then come to that. That is going to be on the Thursday of PorcFest. I believe that's also 1 o'clock. So, again, I'll post links to all of the PorcFest events that I have mentioned. I'll post those in the show notes. That way you can easily find them. So, back to the article here from UPI. Senator Rand Paul has said that he plans to raise objections to every provision of the bill that he sees as an unwarranted invasion of citizens' privacy. McConnell, that being Mitch McConnell, the Senate Majority Leader, made a final plea on Sunday and asked colleagues to pass a 2-week extension of the USA Patriot Act, Section 215, specifically so that terror suspects won't slip through the cracks during the lapse in the law. When Rand Paul refused, a spirited debate ensued between the two Kentucky senators. Senator Paul said one of the promises given when the USA Patriot Act was originally passed was that in exchange for allowing a less than constitutional standard, we would only use the action against terrorists and against foreigners. We found, though, that in 99% of the time, it is being used for domestic crimes. I believe that no section of the Patriot Act should be passed unless our targets are terrorists and not Americans. McConnell argued that a campaign of demagoguery and disinformation has allowed the opponents of the USA Patriot Act to negotiate from a position of strength, and that the Senate and this is what it reads, the opponents of the Patriot Act are able to negotiate from a position of strength and the Senate from a position of weakness. Even though some of the people that are seen as opponents of the Patriot Act are actually in the Senate, but I digress. The article here continues, quote, "This is where we are, colleagues. A House-passed bill with some serious flaws, an inability to get a short-term Patriot Act extension to try and improve the House-passed bill in a way we normally would do this, through some kind of consultative process," that from Mitch McConnell, moments before he asked the Senate to vote in favor of the USA Freedom Act, which he said the Senate will amend this week. Senator Paul has long been railing against the USA Patriot Act, and 10 days ago led a marathon 11-hour filibuster, although it wasn't a filibuster. I am tired of people saying that he did a filibuster, because he did not do a filibuster. He gave an 11-hour speech. Well, almost 11. It was like 10 and a half, close enough to 11. I'll go ahead and say it was an 11-hour speech because it was close enough. But it was not a filibuster. And the reason that I say it was not a filibuster is because based on Senate rules, it could not be a filibuster because there was no Senate action planned during the period in which Rand Paul got up and talked. There was nothing going on, nothing planned at all. There were no Senate activities planned. There were no Senate discussions planned. They were not supposed to vote on anything. They were to go home, eat supper, and go to bed. That's what was planned for the Senate while Rand Paul talked for nearly 11 hours. Not a filibuster. It was a great show that he put on, and it's going to get some people to be like, yeah, Rand Paul supports me. No, he doesn't. Rand Paul supports Rand Paul. Rand Paul does what Rand Paul needs to do to get people to think that Rand Paul loves liberty and loves freedom. Rand Paul, again, he has said that he does not want to get rid of the NSA. He doesn't want to get rid of spying. He just wants to refocus it. And, well, I'm sorry, but you can't have it both ways. Either you have spying agencies or you don't. Like, there is no, we have a spy agency, but they're only going to spy on this very small percentage of people. No, if you've got a spy agency, they're spying on every damn body. This has been Peace, Love, Liberty Radio. There's a good bit more to the article. It will be posted in the show notes. And don't forget, every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, the show is live, or not live, it's recorded live. You can find all of the archives online, fppradio.com.